Welcome to the Shepherd's Chapel Network Family Bible Study Hour with Pastor Arnold Murray. Wisdom is understanding God's Word. Pastor Murray's unique teaching approach brings God's Word alive with meaning as he takes you on a chapter-by-chapter, verse-by-verse study of God's letter to you, the Bible. And now, here is Dennis Murray. A Bible Study Hour. We're ready to get back into our Father's Word in the book of Numbers. In our last lecture, we had covered the wanderings, actually the Exodus, all the way from Egypt, and then the wanderings of the children of Israel, and as we left them on the plains of Moab, poised to move into the Promised Land. And you'll recall that Reuben and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh joining in with them decided that their promised land they liked would be on the east side of the Jordan. So with the agreement that they would arm themselves to war, cross over Jordan with their brethren, and stay there until all the enemies were conquered and each of the tribes had inherited their inheritance in the land of Canaan, then they could go back across the river and meet back with their families there. They left the women and children and the herds and the flocks on the east side. In our last lecture, we left off chapter 33, verse 5, and with the aid of the map, we covered the encampment areas, and rather than covering all of those, they went from this point A to point B. We are going to skip to verse 50 of chapter 33 in the book of Numbers. We will ask that word of wisdom in Yeshua's precious name. Father, we ask you to open eyes, open ears. The book of Numbers, chapter 33, verse 50, and it reads, "And the Lord spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho, saying," and in verses 51 through actually most of chapter 34, we'll see the boundaries established and the how the lands were to be divided up. And of course, that wouldn't be accomplished by Moses. That would be done by Eleazar, the high priest, and Joshua, Moses' replacement. 51, "Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye are passed over Jordan into the land of Canaan," and you might make a note of Joshua chapter 3 at this point, if you're not familiar with that crossing over. When it came time to cross over, the Lord performed another miracle for the children of Israel to increase their trust in him, their belief in him, that he would indeed go before them into the land of Canaan and smite their enemies. And that miracle was that Jordan dried up, the river Jordan dried up as soon as the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant's feet touched the water on the banks of the Jordan. It completely dried up. The children of Israel passed over on dry land, much as the crossing of the Red Sea. 52, "Then ye shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their pictures, and destroy all their molten images, and quite pluck down all their high places." And I got to share with you, I wasn't going to do this, but I received a letter from a gentleman that said he was tired of talking to his television, I guess meaning he was tired of talking to me while I was on television, and said, "I don't know why you spend so much time saying the translation of the King James Version Bible is bad and go showing us how much Greek and Hebrew you know. And I think that the King James Version is God-inspired." I also believe that the King James Version Bible is God-inspired, but it's not as accurate. And if you would read the letter by the translators in the beginning of the King James Version Bible, you would understand that. And the reason I mention that is this word pictures here. And it's a Hebrew word, maskith, and it means figures carved in stone. So had you been reading along, the average English reader, and seen pictures here, they might have thought that they found the family albums of the Canaanites and thought they were ugly people, so they destroyed those. That wasn't the point at all. What God is instructing them to do is tear down all of their idols, everything that they worshiped, which were heathen deities, tear down their high places of worship. And what God is saying here is no idolatry. And that reminds me of Exodus chapter 20, verse 3, the first of the 10 commandments. "Thou shalt have no God before me. other gods before me, small g. The second commandment, thou shalt have no graven images that thou shalt bow down to. So God does not like idolatry. He is a jealous God. Exodus 34:14, he says, my name is jealous. So he wanted no idolatry, no chance of the children of Israel being taken in by these heathen deities. 53, and ye shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land and dwell therein, for I have given you the land to possess it. And that's a gift from Yahweh himself. So this is something they shouldn't be afraid. He's given them the victory already. Of course, the generation before them became frightened of the people in Canaan and refused to go. And that's why they were sentenced to die in the wilderness. 54. And ye shall divide the land by lot for an inheritance among your families. And to the more ye shall give the more inheritance, meaning this in the Hebrew better translated, multiply his inheritance. And to the fewer ye shall give the less inheritance, or diminish his inheritance. And I'll remind you of the tribe of Simeon that went from 59,000 plus in chapter 1 to 22,000 plus in chapter 26 at the second numbering in the book of Numbers. So more children, more blessing, more land also is what that meant. Less inheritance, every man's inheritance shall be in the place where his lot falleth. According to the tribes of your fathers ye shall inherit. And this, of course, referring to the lots that would be cast by Eleazar, the high priest, using the Urim and Thummim. And what this would do was reduce the likelihood of strife or jealousy about who got which land, for the lot was seen as the decision of Yahweh himself. 55, but if ye will not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then it shall come to pass that those, this being the Canaanites, the Jebusites, the Hittites, all the peoples that were over on the west side of Jordan, which ye let remain of them, shall be pricks or thorns in your eyes, and thorns, better translated, stings in your sides, and shall vex or war with you in the land wherein ye dwell. And Joshua, in Joshua chapter 23, verse 13, would repeat the same threat of Yahweh in his last address to the assembled congregation of the children of Israel. 56, moreover, it shall come to pass that I shall do unto you as I thought to do unto them. In other words, he was going to smite the Canaanites. So if you don't follow my request, my will, my plan, and thoroughly run these people out, then I will do to you, Yahweh speaking, what I was going to do to the inhabitants of the land of Canaan. So doing things, don't do things God's way, or you pay. And that's the way it is. And in chapter 34, the first 15 verses, we see the boundaries set of Canaan. And in other words, this is the land that the people on the west side, the tribes that settle on the west side of Jordan, these are the boundaries of the land that they're to inherit. Chapter 34, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, verse 2, command the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye come, and this means after you have accomplished the commandments in the latter part of chapter 33, unto the land of Canaan, this is the land that shall fall unto you for an inheritance, even the land of Canaan with the coast thereof. In other words, the coast meaning the boundaries, if you will, not necessarily water. Some of them were indeed coastlines, such as the coastline of the Mediterranean Sea, as we will cover when we get there. Verse 3, then your south quarter, or your southern region, shall be from the wilderness of Zin along the coast. Here's one example that it's not water, the border of Edom. Remember, they were told at this time to leave the Edomites alone. At a later time, Saul would take part of Edom. David would finish that work up in the books of Kings. And your south border shall be the outmost coast of the Salt Sea eastward. Salt Sea, of course, being the Dead Sea. In other words, it's establishing the southeast corner of the nation at this point. 4, And your border shall turn from the south to the ascent of Akrabim, and pass on to Zin. And the going forth thereof shall be from the south to Kadesh Barnea. You'll recall Kadesh Barnea being the location that the 12 spies were sent north into Canaan. And then the second time that the tribes of Israel gathered back after 37 years wandering in the wilderness, that's where Miriam died. And shall go on to Hazar Adar, and pass on to Asmon. And biblical geography is one of the most confusing. There are a lot of experts, but none of the experts agree on where these places are today. And actually, very few of them can be established without some uncertainty. 5, and the border shall fetch a compass. This means turn about. In fact, later revisions of the King James Bible, it is translated turn about, from Asmon into the river of Egypt. Now, this word river, nakar in the Hebrew, is river. This is nakal, and it means a brook of Egypt, and the goings out of it shall be at the sea. In other words, this line running along the south border began at the base, if you will, the southern end of the Dead Sea, and to run over to the Mediterranean Sea. And as for the western border, ye shall even have the Great Sea for a border. This shall be your west border. And the Great Sea being the Mediterranean Sea, and this obviously being one of the most defined boundaries that has pretty much remained intact today. 7, and this shall be your north border. From the Great Sea ye shall point or mark out for you Mount Hor. And this is not to be confused with the Mount Hor where Aaron went to be gathered with his fathers and died and was buried in a tomb there. It's a different location. And again, this north border in particular is difficult to document in that there's only one location mentioned that is identifiable today without any uncertainty. 8, from Mount Hor ye shall point or mark out your border unto the entrance of Hamath, and the goings forth of the border shall be to Zedad. Now this Hamath, there's a city called Hamath and also a nation called Hamath. And they did extend up into the nation of Hamath, but never was the city of Hamath a part of the Israel nation. Saul and David conquered a pretty good portion of the land north of Israel, what we're establishing here, which would be in the nation Hamath, but never was the city part of Israel. And this Hamath is the only point on this northern border that is readily identifiable today. Verse 9, and the border shall go on to Ziphron, and the goings out of it shall be at Hazar Enan. This shall be your north border. And that's Hazar Enan, means fountain court. 10, and ye shall point or mark out your east border from Hazar Enan to Shepham. 11, and the coast shall go down from Shepham to Riblah. Now this would be a city in the nation of Hamath, on the east side of Ain, and the border shall descend and shall reach unto the side of the sea of Chinnereth eastward. Now this would be on the northeast corner of the same sea that's referred to in the New Testament as the Sea of Galilee. 12, and the border shall go down to Jordan, the Jordan River, and the goings out of it shall be at the Salt Sea, back to the Dead Sea. This shall be your land with the coast thereof round about. So we've got the boundaries established, and again, a lot of biblical geographers have different opinions of where these are located, and actually the only ones that actually can be defined today are the bodies of water, such as the rivers, the Mediterranean Sea. But when you think about it, even the rivers and the seas have changed somewhat in the period of time, 3,500 years approximately since these events occurred. And I imagine if an analogy, if you came back 3,300 years from now, the United States having been established over 200 years ago, but my point being, after it was established, if you came back 3,500 years and asked someone to show you where Jamestown was, it might be pretty difficult. In fact, it's difficult at this point. There are even arguments over that. So a lot of water is run under the bridge. 13. And Moses commanded the children of Israel, saying, this is the land. And of course, this was the land on the west side of Jordan, which ye shall inherit by lot, which the Lord commanded to give unto the 9 tribes and to the half tribe. And of course, this referring to, as we'll see in the next verse, because Reuben, Gad, and half Manasseh would stay on the east side. 14. For the tribe of the children of Reuben, according to the house of their fathers, and the tribe of the children of Gad, according to the house of their fathers, have received their inheritance. And this would be the land of Jazer and Gilead. And half the tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritance. And that was, of course, as long as they kept their promise, which was established in chapter 32, that they would indeed arm themselves and cross over Jordan and fight with their brethren. 15. The 2 tribes and the half tribe have received their inheritance on this side Jordan, near Jericho, eastward toward the sun rising. And the half Manasseh would be in the northern portion of on the east side of Jordan. The half tribe of Manasseh would be on the northern portion of that, directly across the Jordan River from what would eventually be assigned to the other half of the tribe of Manasseh, which would settle on the west side of Jordan. Gad would be located in the central portion of the lands on the east, and Reuben in the southern portion of the lands on the east of Jordan. 16. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, and now it's time for the Lord will be choosing who it is that a prince from each tribe that will assist in the assigning of the divisions of the land. 17. These are the names of the men which shall divide the land unto you. Eleazar the priest, and I think he's listed here first because he would be the one, after all, with being the high priest with the Urim and Thummim, which would be drawing the lots from the pouch, which would make the Lord's decision on who got what portion of land. And Joshua, the son of Nun. Joshua, of course, would at that point be the commander of the army, or as Moses' replacement, the commander of the entire nation. 18. And ye shall take 1 prince of every tribe to divide the land by inheritance. And I'll point out to you, it's still the Lord speaking here. So the Lord himself chose the prince from each of these tribes that would partake in the division of the lands. 19. And the names of the men are these: of the tribe of Judah, Caleb, the son of Jephunneh. And you recall Caleb being the only one at first of the 12 spies that went north into Canaan in chapter 13 of this book of Numbers, and came back and did not make up a false report as the others did, but said, let's go. The Lord promised that land to us. We can defeat them. Let's go. And all the rest except Joshua did not listen to him. 20. And of the tribe of the children of Simeon, Shemuel, the son of Amihud. And Shemuel means heard of God. 21. And of the tribe of Benjamin, Elidad, the son of Chislon. And Elidad means God of his love. 22. And the prince of the tribe of the children of Dan, Buki, the son of Joglai. And Buki means wasteful. 23. The prince of the children of Joseph, for the tribe of the children of Manasseh, Haniel, the son of Ephod. And Haniel means favor of God. And of course, this is referring to half the tribe of Manasseh that would settle on the west side of Jordan. 24. And the prince of the tribe of the children of Ephraim, Kemuel, the son of Shiftan. And this Kemuel means raised of God. Remember, these are all chosen by God himself, hand-picked men. 25. And the prince of the tribe of the children of Zebulun, Elisaphan, the son of Parnach. Elisaphan means God of treasure. 26. And the prince of the tribe of the children of Issachar, Palatiel, the son of Azan. And this Palatiel means deliverance of God. Now, these children all were born, remember, in a time frame that, or at least they would have been 19 years or less when the generation that was numbered in chapter 1 were sentenced to be destroyed in the wilderness. So at the most, these people would be 59, 60 years old, somewhere in that area, and maybe even less. 26. And the prince of the tribe of the children of Issachar, we caught that verse 27. And the prince of the tribe of the children of Asher, Ahihud, the son of Shilomai. And this Ahihud means brother or possessor of renown. And they are about to do some possessing. 28. And the prince of the tribe of the children of Naphtali, Pedael, the son of Ammihud. And this is God has ransomed, the meaning of Pedael. 29. And these are they whom the Lord, that's Yahweh, commanded to divide the inheritance unto the children of Israel in the land of Canaan. And, I think Eleazar and Joshua were probably fully capable of carrying that assignment out themselves. And by the way, these lots would be assigned in Joshua chapters 15 through 19. If you're not familiar with that, you might want to make a study of that, and that's where the lots were actually drawn. But I think the reason God probably had a representative or a prince, if you will, the meaning that he was well known and probably well respected in his respective tribe, was the fact that this would leave no room for doubt as far as foul play or things not being done fairly. In other words, each tribe had a representative at the drawing of the lots to make sure everything was on the up and up. Now, in chapter 35, a very interesting chapter I know you'll enjoy, and what we find in chapter 35 are the assignment of the 6 cities of refuge, which, if you're not familiar with, were cities that God promised. Actually, in Exodus 21:13, he promised that these cities would be established, and it was a place where someone that was suspected of murder could go and more or less have protection. And the Levites, of course, being representative of God, this, of course, would be a good place for them in that the people would respect these cities above all as being places of Yahweh, in that his representatives were there. Also in chapter 35, we'll see that the other cities and how the houses and how the pasture lands were assigned to the Levites, which is an interesting study in itself. And then once, and backing up to the thought about the one suspected of murder, we'll also see how God feels about murder when it is premeditated murder, and then what happens if it was an accident, possibly something that we'll see as we get there, something such as an axe head falling off and striking someone, totally unintentional and unpremeditated. But these cities of refuge were a place that these could go and be safe from the vengeance of the nearest relative, being the kinsman redeemer. So let's pick it up and see how we come out today. Chapter 35, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho, saying, and you'll recall the Levites were not to receive an inheritance in the land. Their inheritance was Yahweh himself. So don't confuse what's happening here. They are given some possessions. After all, they do need a roof over their head. They do have to have a place to keep their cattle and their sheep. So that's about what to happen here. But they are not given a land of their own, so to speak. 2, command the children of Israel that they give unto the Levites of the inheritance of their possession cities to dwell in. And ye shall give us also unto the Levites suburbs for the cities round about them. Now, the cities would not be, you might read it, entire cities. They were to be given such houses as they needed for the number of Levites that would be assigned there. So don't think of this that the Now, the cities of refuge likely were probably a large proportion of the population was Levites, but in the cases that we're not talking about the cities of refuge, but the other 42 cities, then indeed they would be mixed in, if you would, with the other population. 3, and the cities shall they have to dwell in, and the suburbs of them shall be for their cattle and for their goods and for all their beasts. Now, the suburbs listed there, if you'll check that out in your Strongs, when I read suburbs, I thought this would be the outlying areas of a large city, which it is, but it's pasture land, and this was where they would keep their cattle. Also, you might make a note in Leviticus 25:34, it's interesting to note that there are different rules of redemption. And what I'm talking about is if a man, a non-Levite, for example, sold or rented a house in a walled city, and you'll find that in Leviticus chapter 25, he had 1 year to redeem that house, or it became the possession of the one that bought it and onto his heirs. In other words, it didn't go out in the year of Jubilee. And I'm talking about walled cities. There's a difference. Now, the Levites, on the other hand, did not, if they leased or sold their home, they could redeem it at any time. The 1 year didn't apply. And also at the year of Jubilee, it was returned to the Levite that had sold it or rented it, however you wish to look at it. Now, the suburbs, on the other hand, the land that was assigned to them, and that's in Leviticus 25:34, is an eternal or perpetual, I believe is the English word there, possession, and not to be sold. It could not be sold or rented, these suburb areas. Verse 4, and the suburbs of the cities which ye shall give unto the Levites shall reach from the wall of the city and outward 1,000 cubits round about. And I'm going to go ahead and cover verse 5, and then we're going to have a graphic that might help you understand what this is talking about in verses 4 and 5. Verse 5, and ye shall measure from without the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, and on the south side 2,000 cubits, on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits, and the city shall be in the midst. Or in other words, the city walls would be right in the middle, the city itself right in the middle of these, and I'll explain more in a moment. This shall be to them the suburbs of the cities. And again, at this time, if we could bring up that graphic, I think this will help you understand what was just described here. But if you'll visualize, and for the benefit of those that are listening to this by audio tape, I'm going to try and describe this in such a way that if you get a pencil and a piece of paper, you can draw out for yourself the graphic that we're looking at as on television or on videotape. So we have a square in the middle, each side, of course, being a square equal in length. And we're going to, for demonstration purposes, the city had walls of 1,000 cubits. Now, if you will take the city that's still in the center and extend a line from the upper left-hand corner of your square upwards, about an equal distance as the walls of the city that you just drew, being represented by the square, the initial square. Then the upper right-hand corner, draw a line to the right. From the lower right-hand corner, draw a line down. And from the lower left-hand corner, draw a line to the left. Now, this is what was covered in verse 4 about from each corner of the city, go outward 1,000 cubits. So then if we could have the next phase of the graphic, and if you'll just then enclose all of that with a square, in other words, you added on the lines to upwards, to the right, downwards, and to the left. Now use the ends of those lines as a guide point and close it in. And what you have then is the example is the city wall is 1,000 feet. We measure out 1,000 feet in each direction. But then if you'll enclose that whole thing with the square, in essence, if we'll start with the top of that graphic on the left, that distance from there to the line where that joins back to the city is 1,000 cubits. The city wall is 1,000 cubits, and then to the right is another 1,000 cubits. So in essence, this would then, the suburbs of the Levites would be a 3,000 foot square. So this, of course, means that the size of the land that the Levites had as a possession depended on the size of the city that they were in. For if the original city wall were 500 feet, then it would be a 2,000 cubit, I should say. Then the possession of the Levites would be 2,500 feet because the city wall is 500 feet shorter. And I don't know if I confused you or helped you understand with that graphic, but we thought it was worth a try. Verse 6, and among the cities which ye shall give unto the Levites, there shall be 6 cities for refuge. Now this word refuge in the Hebrew is miklaut, and it means an asylum or a safe haven, if you will, which ye shall appoint for the manslayer, and that he may flee thither, and to them ye shall add 42 cities. And it doesn't say here, but it will be clarified in future books of the Bible that 3 of these cities of refuge would be on the east side of Jordan. 3 of the cities of refuge would be on the west side of Jordan. And each was located in such a manner as that it would give pretty much everyone the same amount of travel time to get to one of them from the farthest point. In other words, if you've got a relative that suspects that you have murdered his brother hot on your tails, you don't want to have to go very far to find a city of refuge. Also, I'll mention that you have the 6 cities of refuge in addition to 42 other cities, so a total of 48 locations where the Levites would be assigned. 7, so all the cities which ye shall give to the Levites shall be 48 cities, and them shall ye give with their suburbs. And you might make a note of Genesis 49:7. There was a curse that Jacob placed on Levites there, and that curse was that they would be scattered among Jacob and are divided among Jacob and scattered in Israel. But we also see in Exodus chapter 32, 26 and 29, this is turned into a blessing. And Exodus 32, 26 is where Moses came down off of the mount just having received the law and found him with a golden calf. And he was furious, and he said, who will stand on the side of the Lord? And all the sons of Levi stood behind Moses. And in verse 29 of that chapter 32 of Exodus, they are promised a blessing. And you think about it, you wouldn't want the Levites all in one location. That would be like, for example, we have a lot of people that say, well, I sure wish we all could live in Gravette, but the Lord needs people scattered out all over the country to keep people in with His law in mind, protecting His rights. Those were the purpose of the Levites. He set them apart to take care of those things, and they would have to be somewhat scattered among the people, or you would have had a very pious group of people in Jerusalem, if that's where they all lived, and everybody else would be going to hell in a fruit basket out in the countryside. 8, and the cities which ye shall give shall be of the possession of the children of Israel. From them that have many ye shall give many, but from them that have few ye shall give few. Every one shall give of his cities unto the Levites according to his inheritance which he inheriteth. In other words, the more you had, the more that you were expected to give to the Levites. More Levites would be assigned to you because they were, I think, probably assigned proportionally to the population. And as this broke down, we ended up with 9 of the Levitical cities in the lands of Judah and Simeon combined together. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying 9 in each, but 9 in all of Judah and Simeon. There would be 4 in all of the other tribes, with the exception of Naphtali, which had 3. So we're going to stop there for today and pick this up on the next lecture. But again, I think it was important that the Levites were spread out over the country. That was the only way that they could stay in contact with the people. They probably were more or less in areas together so that they didn't feel, if you'd had sent one Levite to be out way over here in the northeast regions by himself, that would not be good, because he would likely feel like he was the only one out there trying to keep God in the mind of the people. He might become discouraged and, even worse, fall into the same practices of the people instead of teaching them God's law, which was their responsibility. So probably a good idea to spread them around the country as they did. Well, we've got a short message. We'll ask you to listen a moment.
Our Father truly loves you. I love you because you enjoy studying our Father's Word in more depth. But what's really important, He loves you for that. It really makes His day, and I want you to know that I appreciate you. We're brought to you by your tithes and offerings, and we've helped you. You help us keep coming to you. Once you do that, bless God. Know what? He will always bless you. But there's one thing that's more important than anything else. That's this: that you stay in His Word every day. In His Word is a good day, even with problems. You know why? Jesus is the living Word.
The Mark of the Beast on CD is our free introductory offer to you. What is the Mark of the Beast? Many false teachers would have you believe it will be a tattoo on your forehead or a computer chip implanted under your skin. It is getting late in the game. You need to know what the Mark of the Beast is. As it's written in Revelation chapter 13, verse 8, many will be deceived. There is no need for you to be deceived. Christ said in Mark 13:23, "Behold, I have foretold you all things." Jesus indeed told us how not to be deceived, and Pastor Arnold Murray takes you on a step-by-step study of God's Word concerning this critical subject, the Mark of the Beast. The telephone call is free. The CD is free. We don't even ask for the shipping and handling. It is free as well. All you need to do is call 800-643-4645 to request your one-time, one-per-household copy of the Mark of the Beast. You may also request your free CD by mailing your request to Shepherd's Chapel, Post Office Box 416, Gravette, Arkansas 72736. Don't be deceived by Satan. Hearing God's Word with understanding will change your life. We hope you have enjoyed studying God's Word here on the Shepherd's Chapel Family Bible Study Hour with Pastor Arnold Murray. If you would like to receive more information concerning Shepherd's Chapel, you may request our free introductory offer. Our introductory offer contains the Mark of the Beast audio tape, our monthly newsletter with a written Bible study, a tape catalog, and a list of written reference works available through Shepherd's Chapel. To request our free introductory offer by telephone, call 800-643-4645 24 hours a day. You may also request our introductory offer by writing to Shepherd's Chapel, Post Office Box 416, Gravette, Arkansas 72736. Once again, that's Shepherd's Chapel, Post Office Box 416, Gravette, Arkansas 72736. We invite you to join us for the next in-depth Bible study each weekday at this same time. Thank you for watching today's program, and God bless you.